Welcome everyone to Let's Discuss, a new show where I bring up a topic and we talk about what's going on with it and how I believe it should be handled. Now, movies and video games have been going through an odd period recently with a lot of people, myself included, believing that on the big industry side, things are starting to or have already gotten stale. With video games, the main issues that get brought up are companies trying to suck as much money out of an IP as possible, sequel fatigue, way too similar gameplay and world design, and lastly, that everything is now getting remastered. The issues people are having with film are companies making blatant cash grabs just to try and ride trends, sequel fatigue is here as well, along with everything trying to have a cinematic universe, superhero fatigue, lack of original stories in film, and lastly, too many properties are getting rebooted. Listing off each of the industry's issues, you can see some common points and themes going on. At some point, tackling all of these issues would be great, but the main thing I would like to focus on for this video is the remaster and reboots common to both mediums. So why are a lot of film and games under this category either seen as bad or aggravating? From a company and business standpoint, reboots and remasters are fantastic because it's an old property that's widely loved or has a dedicated fan base, so they can make bank off of this. Whether the new product or press is good doesn't matter. If it gets enough buzz, people will go see or buy said product because of how talked about it is. At least that's how it did work, for a little while. Recently though, consumers have wised up. We've been burned by a lot of underwhelming products. So the fix is to just stop, right? Stop making the 40-60 remasters of 10 to 20-year-old games and stop trying to reboot movies that are now considered classics because of their age, right? Well, no. As we get into it, there are times where it's okay or even necessary for these to happen, and well-timed reboots or remasters will both make customers happy and turn a profit. Having been around longer than video games, films have had more practice with this. The mark of a good film remaster is improved visual and improved audio. In its lifetime, films changed from reels to VHS to Laserdisc to DVD and currently Blu-ray. Every time that's happened, remasters have been necessary so that the good material from previous eras doesn't get left behind. The best way to advertise these is by showing them in theaters for a limited time. This actually happened a lot when 3D remasters were a fad. Disney films and Jurassic Park had the most successful theater runs too. Now, remasters for games are slightly more tricky. Yes, updating graphics and resolution and making your game look like the belle of the ball is always great, but this should never be the focus. There are two things that should be first on developers' minds. First is controls. Updating the game's controls to make it play better is imperative because this could take an old game and make it playable again, or take a playable game and make it timeless. Unless you're a freak of nature like Halo or a 2D Mario, your controls will have aged. Banjo-Kazooie got an update released to Xbox 360 and Xbox One, and it handles a lot better than the original Nintendo 64 release. While movies will run at consistent speed once you press play, games are computer programs, and if too much is happening on the screen, things slow down and break immersion. Which brings me to my second point, game stability. The previous mentioned slowdown happens when a game's code is outdated or underutilized. Just like film recording and playback technology keeps getting better, so do programming techniques and hardware for video games. Again, what used to be an unsolvable issue can become solvable. The original Crash Bandicoot game used every bit of memory on the disc except 4. Literally, there was only 4 bits of memory left. With Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, all 3 games fit on one disc with room to spare. That's how far we've come. And to boot, the game runs at 60 frames per second instead of the original's 30 frames per second, when it isn't slowing down, and with minimal bugs. Now, whether the actual level design has held up is a different story. However, on a pure coding level, the remaster is superior. To sum up, film needs to look better, games need to look, feel, and run better when it comes to remasters. Now, as much as we love reliving our childhoods and having that blast from the past, some of these products just are inherently flawed, could have been better realized, or it just needs a change of pace. Things that a remaster can't address. This is when reboots come in. The great thing about reboots is most of the same principles apply to both film and games alike, so we're going to be talking about both throughout this whole segment. A reboot should either explore a good product from a different angle or rebuild an inherently flawed one from the ground up. A great example of the different angle approach is with Hollywood's two most recent cracks at the Godzilla franchise. The 1999 version asks, what if Godzilla was an evil baby mama monster? And the 2014 version explores, what if Godzilla killed evil baby mama monsters? Also, the human protagonist is a soldier, not a reporter. These small changes lead to very different movies that give different experiences. Very different experiences. This applies to games as well, with Super Metroid in 1994 versus its series reboot Metroid Prime in 2002. 3D feels a lot different from a 2D space, and being able to scan enemies in Prime is a cool new feature. Again, they each have the same setup, in this case exploring planets, but each version does the same thing in a very different way. Now let's talk about rebuilding an inherently flawed product from the ground up. The first great example of this is the film Seventh Heaven. In case you don't know what this is, here's a shameless plug of our other series. Go watch that. Now the aspect that the 1937 version explores that the 1927 doesn't, well, sound comes out of the screen now. See, the original is a silent film while the other is a talkie. Dialogue isn't 2 or 3 sentence intertitles that fight with the characters for screen time. Now that conversations are longer, we don't have to pad out the movie with gratuitous war scenes either. Also, it just looks better, and you know what? I'd say it's due for a third reboot, one with color and modern line delivery.
Do you realize what this means? I am a street washer. I have risen.
Video game wise, there's Doom 3 versus Doom. A lot of people were not happy about the more horror-driven gameplay of Doom 3, so when id Software decided to reboot the series with Doom 2016, the game went back to its balls-to-the-wall gore and action. This is usually a series-wide thing for reboots, but plenty of one-off games could also use do-overs. I know all of this sounds complicated, but it's been done before. I think the current hate for reboots that people have could become excitement again if Judge Dredd and It are more of a common thread among products. Well, thanks for listening to my thoughts on what I think we should do to help push the industry forward and making successful and rewarding content for everyone. Now, of course, is the time I want to ask, what do you think? What games and movies need touch-ups or do-overs? Any ideas for remasters or reboots that I missed? Thanks for listening, and I will see you guys next time.